Latin America and Asia are two of the most popular parts of the world for nomad capitalists to go and get their residence permit in and spend time in. Today I'm going to break down the pros and cons of each region and tell you which one comes out best under a number of factors. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the author of the book Nomad Capitalist and the founder of Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. And so you've got a lot of different residence programs in both Latin America and Asia. Generally speaking, not a lot of citizenship by investment programs, but residence programs that may or may not lead to citizenship. They allow you to spend time there, or not in many cases. And I'm going to break these down for you today under a number of factors. So Latin America, as part of the New World, as countries of immigrants, do have a lot of different programs. Central America, you go up and down, most countries have some kind of residence program. Some of those may require you to spend time there, but they all pretty much have a program. South America, most countries have a program. Bolivia's program, for example, pretty weak. But the other countries do all have programs, even if some countries like Peru don't often honor the rules of their program. In Asia, most Southeast Asian countries do have some kind of residence program. A couple of other countries throughout Asia do as well. And so I don't want to get into each individual program today, since there are so many different options between these two locations. If there's a particular country that you're interested in, leave a comment below. We want to hear from you. What I want to do is just lump in the Americas, Latin America, and then compare that to Asia and let you know my thoughts under each of these categories. And the first category is level of investment. So if you're looking to invest as little as possible, Latin America is going to be your destination. I've often said that Latin America prioritizes income, whereas Asia prioritizes wealth. In Asia, they're often going to want you to put some of that wealth on the barrelhead, in the bank, into property. And we've seen that with Malaysia recently as the newest program to come back from suspension, where the MM2H program is now expecting more significant amounts of money in the banks and more significant amounts of money in your global portfolio. So Asia really prioritizes, hey, show us the money, show us that you have wealth. In some cases, show us that you also have income. Malaysia's MM2H program has dramatically increased the amount of income that you need to qualify for their program. And then, hey, put some of that money into our country. Whereas in Latin America, a number of the countries say, hey, show us your bank statements, or maybe deposit a smaller amount of money into our banks, or maybe just commit to spending time here. Now, the process in Latin America is much more bureaucratic in many cases. In Malaysia, for example, I found that to be exceptionally easy to deal with and very pleasant. And unlike many other government experiences I've had, people were just pretty darn happy in terms of getting a residence permit and the procedures around that. In Latin America, the I's not dotted right, the T isn't crossed. I mean, that's the bigger issue, is kind of knowing how to get stuff done. But in terms of the actual investment level, Latin America, if you are looking to invest not a lot, or you don't have a lot to invest, it's generally going to be a lot easier for you. There are some exceptions, for example, such as Uruguay's tax residence does require a decent investment. If you go to the Caribbean, you'll see the Cayman Islands, for example, one of the most expensive immigration programs in the world if you're doing the actual investment. But Latin America as a whole, definitely much lower. Now, in terms of taxes, Asia generally wins. Again, you have the Cayman Islands, which are tax-free. You have places like Uruguay, which have tax incentives that usually don't last forever. But Asia, you have a lot more territorial tax countries where your foreign source income isn't taxed. You've got Malaysia, you've got the Philippines, you've got Singapore, you've got Thailand. Now, to say that those countries are territorial tax does not mean that you won't pay any tax. You definitely want to do some tax planning, whether you're in crypto, whether you have a business. There are different rules. In Thailand, you have to send money to yourself in a certain way. And so you definitely want to do some tax planning there to make sure that you're not going to be on the wrong side of the tax code. But you look at Latin America, you've got a lot more countries that perhaps would play into a trifecta where they're not going to be aggressive on taxation as some kind of European countries where they're always trying to pull you in by hook or by crook. But if you're spending substantial time in any particular Latin American country, by and large, you're going to pay for that. Now, some countries like Mexico have kind of weird, tax codes where there's different, kind of nebulous rules that you need to deal with. Panama, Nicaragua, Costa Rica would be probably the most tax-friendly countries in that part of the world. Again, there are some tax exemptions in South America, but by and large, you're going to have a cleaner experience for a longer time in Asia when it comes to taxes. On a lifestyle basis, if you want to know where can I have a great lifestyle, I definitely think Asia wins here as well. when it comes to consumer conveniences, when it comes to things like food delivery, when it comes to shopping, when it comes to all sorts of things, luxuries. Asia, I think, definitely wins out. And so, yes, there's the Four Seasons. There's actually two Four Seasons hotels in Bogota. You can't really compare them. As charming as Casa Medina is, you can't really compare them to the Four Seasons in Kuala Lumpur or the Four Seasons in any number of other places in Asia. The level of luxury, the level of consumer conveniences is simply higher. And I kind of think that in the Americas, you do have Amazon, for example, now coming into Colombia. You can get Amazon there. That's a consumer convenience. I think that there's just kind of a different perspective in the Americas. And as one person commented, we just enjoy, relaxing, working on a tan. I'll let that person speak for themselves and not an entire continent. But, definitely in Asia, there's a lot more go, 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 go. And so you might not want to retire to many parts of Asia, although there certainly are parts that you would want to retire to. I don't know that, if you're 25 years old and building a huge business, you want to spend your entire life living on the beach in Costa Rica, although I do know people who do that very successfully. Overall, on a lifestyle front, I believe that Asia wins out. Latin America is improving in some ways, but I think just generally the consumer conveniences and availability of goods isn't there as much. Now, when it comes to stability, let's talk about the residence permits themselves. When it comes to stability, one comment that people have made about Malaysia's MM2H program or Thailand's elite visa program is they are basically glorified long-term tourist visas. So someone recently said, hey, the MM2H is always a 10-year tourist visa. You can just come and go as you please. Now, it's not entirely true because tourist visas generally don't let you spend your entire time there. Theoretically, with the MM2H under the old rules, you could spend 10 years there and never have to leave. And then you would get the tax benefits, you get the lifestyle benefits. So it's not entirely true, but they are not in Asia. They generally don't lead to permanent residence or to citizenship. One of the notable standouts is a program that people don't talk about that much. We've talked about it a couple times, and that's South Korea's immigrant investor program, whereby you're going to invest a decent chunk of money from $500,000 roughly on up. But you are going to have a path to permanent residence. You're not going to have to spend all your time there. There are some tax incentives there. Potentially, you wouldn't even have to become a taxpayer in the country to work your way towards permanent residence. However, in terms of getting citizenship, you're going to have to give up your citizenship in your previous country. In the case of Korea, you've got to spend a lot of hours in class learning Korean. There are other requirements that come with that citizenship. So generally speaking, for most people, it's just, it's not going to be that appealing. The UAE, if we're talking about, Western Asia, said, hey, we're going to work on giving some people citizenship who have really contributed to the country financially. Again, the talk is need to learn Arabic, need to renounce. Singapore, generally speaking, the same deal for most people. There are a couple of rare exceptions, but that's the exception, not the rule. And by and large, it's very difficult to get permanent residence and even more difficult to get citizenship in Singapore these days. So Asia, in terms of stability, definitely more difficult in terms of saying, hey, you're going to get a 5-year Thai elite visa, or you're going to get a 5-year now MM2H, or you're going to get South Korean PR, but you're never going to be a citizen, that kind of thing. You go to Latin America, there's a path to citizenship in almost all these countries. Now, you may not be able to get that in most cases by never living there, but there is a path to citizenship. It could take as little as 2 or 3 years in some cases. And so, countries that are used to immigrants are going to give out citizenship. Now, I've talked for many years about how countries like Uruguay have made it much more difficult to get citizenship. I wouldn't say that the fact that you can simply apply means you're going to get it, but at least you have a little bit more stability in terms of you can go up to permanent residence, you can go up to citizenship. In the case of Panama, for example, they're much more expensive now. Their version of the Friendly Nations visa, which is no longer just a bank deposit, it is a substantial investment. But at least you get instant, pretty close to instant permanent residence, and so you have that stability, and then you can go about with your life. In terms of flexibility, on the other hand, there is a decent amount of flexibility in some Latin American programs, but Asian countries, I think, generally win out. Now, Malaysia recently added to their new MM2H program a 90-day stay requirement, so that took away the flexibility that you really didn't need to be there before. The Thai Elite Visa, the Thai Investor Visa, other programs don't require really much time from you at all. South Korea's program, again, not quite as flexible, but relatively flexible. Taiwan is a program that's relatively flexible. These are not cheap programs, but you do get more flexibility where you can keep in that residence in your back pocket. Thailand actually may come out better than anybody right now because the Philippines program, which was also pretty darn flexible, has been suspended for the time being. So Asia has a nominal advantage in terms of flexibility. Now, as I mentioned, when it comes to citizenship and locking in, Latin America is going to win because, again, pretty much every country in Latin America will give you a path to citizenship. Again, South Korea maybe being the one exception if you want all the restrictions. In terms of openness right now, in terms of what's happening in the world and all the chaos, definitely you've had countries that have been relatively closed on both sides. What you have seen is definitely more openness in Latin America. Asia, I've always suggested, was a place where people follow the rules. I mean, you look at countries like Singapore, Japan, South Korea. These are very rule-based societies, and there's a certain rigidity there, which I think is actually interesting in terms of making things efficient. I mean, if you spend your time living in a lot of highly emerging countries, you're going to have some certain frustrations about, how do I get my mail? Now, it's a decreasing concern these days. But, you go to a place like Singapore, the mail comes to you. It just works. And some people like that rigidity. But with that comes, hey, listen, we're closing the place down for a while, so you need to deal with that. Now, you've had that in a lot of Latin American countries in the last year. However, you've also seen those countries reopen faster. You've seen Mexico that's been open pretty much the entire last year and a half. You've seen Colombia, which is now pretty much fully reopened. And so right now, anything north of Uruguay in Latin America is pretty open. And so if you're looking to people to go out and get back to life as normal, Latin America definitely has an edge right now. So what I want to hear from you is, which countries are you the most interested in? Leave a comment below. There are definitely benefits to Latin America, and there are definitely benefits to Asia. What I suggest to someone who values diversification, who values having numerous options, is potentially have one or two of each. Have your base in Asia. Go and get a residence permit somewhere that doesn't require you to spend a lot of time, or that maybe you can spend enough time, like 90 days, like 4 months, to have a trifecta where you're spending 1/3 of your time in Asia, 1/3 of your time in Latin America, 1/3 of your time maybe in your home country, maybe in Europe, maybe whatever. I don't think you have to necessarily choose, but if you want to understand the benefits and the downsides of each country's residence and citizenship programs, that's what stands out to me. So people ask, Andrew, how do I get the most out of Nomad Capitalist? How do I begin my Nomad Capitalist journey? The first thing people do is they start right where you're at. They watch YouTube, they listen to podcasts, they read articles at nomadcapitalist.com. We've spent years creating thousands of pieces of free content so that you can get the vibe from someone who's actually done this, from someone who's actually been in your shoes. What they'll do next, they'll get a copy of the book. You can find it on Amazon. It costs a few bucks, and while it's not going to give you all the secrets, it's going to, again, give you more of the vibe. You're going to learn a lot of the things that I've learned. You're going to learn some strategies you can employ, and you're going to get a lot further in your journey. From there, if you are the 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur investor, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com. You can click Become a Client. We're pretty busy these days, but we have availability to help a limited number of people who want to create a holistic plan, something that I think is so important. So if you want to do that, go to nomadcapitalist.com, click Become a Client, learn more about how it works and how we can help you.